everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Nerdy Up North podcast, the Nerdy Podcast, hosted by two Northern nerds. I'm one of your hosts, Sam.
And I'm the other host, Paul.
And we're joined, I dare say, a friend of the podcast now.
A familiar face of the podcast. One of our first guests has returned.
Big face.
Compared to our little faces now with the new cameras and stuff. But yes, so we've got Sam's lovely sister Michaela joining us again. So welcome back, Michaela.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, Sam was telling us that you enjoyed it a lot last time. So, well, like I say, we more than wanted you to have back on, especially with this topic. Like now, with the Nerdy Podcast, delving a little bit offbeat, going a little bit a different way, shall we say? Yeah. Going to have a bit of a chat about true crimes and how, like I said, how you feel about the explosion of the true crime genre that seems to be taking off over the last, I would say, year to 2 years. I know it's always been quite a big subject and a big like talking point, but I think recently it has hit new heights, especially with Netflix taking, like I say, quite a big charge on that, and now other things being, especially with Sky as well, launching a specialist channel to crime, which I never thought in a million years would happen, but it seems to be the way that it's going. So before we start as well, I know Sam always likes to have a little disclaimer, so I don't know if she's got it prepared.
Yeah, I think it's really important on this one to add my usual disclaimer that all of the opinions that we, like everything we talk about is our own opinions. If you don't like them, by all means, come and have a chat with us, but do not come and throw hate comments at us with regards to this topic, because it can come off as a bit of a sensitive one. Mm-hmm. Hit us up on Facebook, hit us up in the comments on YouTube. More than happy to have a discussion, but we are trying to keep the toxic levels out of nerdism. Mm-hmm. And I apologise well in advance for my terrible camera quality and potential terrible audio, because I heard it on last week's episode and it didn't sound great. I will be back next week in my usual spot with my brand new camera that I am very excited to get tested out. So that's my disclaimer. That's all I'm saying. If you don't like it, fair beans, but just come and have a conversation with us. Don't come and attack us. I won't tolerate it.
I know we've not had any hate so far, so I'm not expecting any. But like I say, I know this, as I said, as Sam said, it is a sensitive subject. There is a lot of raw, I would say, energy towards, like I say, the true crime thing, especially with some of the subject matter. Well, like I say, we will delve into it and try and handle it as where we can, because like I say, this is just our personal opinion about it. But also, normally at the start, we would get, like I say, the guests to tell us a little bit about themselves, but we've kind of already did that. Like I say, we already know a little bit about you. Has anything else changed since the last spoke to you, Michaela?
Not really. Still just at work, curating on. Still Sam's sister.
That's the one thing you can't get rid of, unfortunately.
The only thing now is, because you do them on a night, I can have a drink. Oh, yes.
Yeah. So it's kind of like a Ploncast now, shall we say?
Yes. Welcome to the Ploncast, even though I'm drinking orange juice.
Yeah.
Bless. Yeah. So, like I say, with this one, because we're not going to do like any top fives or like say general nerd talk, it is just going to be like I say, kind of like a conversation. So it should be interesting to see how it flows. But I think the starting point with any type of like discussion is basically, how did you get into it? So what was your starting points to getting into like true crime, and what was the elements that drew you into it? Like I say, I'll ask you both before I'll let you know about mine.
I was probably similar.
Probably.
Would you say? Mine was. Go on.
I'm like, when did I? Because like I've been watching crime stuff for years, and I'm not like been watching them and like all that. Like I'm not one of them people. But like, yeah, I just remember me and Stephen, my partner, would used to like flip through the channels and watch the Crime Channel and just be obsessed with like Snap, Women Who Kill, and obviously I think we're probably going to be talking more about film, but it started definitely with TV. And yeah, so Snapped, Most Evil, which I loved. To Catch a Predator, which I don't even know if I can't remember what that was on, but
I don't think it was on in the, I don't think that was on in the UK. Catch a Predator was like a American show where the host kind of just like stands on like a desk and you tried messaging a 12-year-old and it was like the most uncomfortable position you ever put in. I remember that one.
Horrendously illegal too, because you're just entrapping all these people. But I just remember watching that and then like finding documentaries and just going like full on through them. Like I love documentaries. Like I love every sort of documentary. So that kind of the true crime thing just went along with that kind of obsession. Cool. Like it was just like everything. I would be like, I watched a documentary on this and I watched a documentary on that, and like I think I don't have a life. I don't, because I'm watching a documentary.
Mine was, I think mine was the late 90s, because I'd heard of the West Memphis 3. And then the early 2000s, I watched Paradise Lost for the first time.
Right.
Which is something I want to get into later on, but Paradise Lost is probably the first point of, I don't know if I want to say obsession. I don't know if that's the right word.
Like I say, when anything can be an obsession or like say something you're passionate about, that's something that always comes across. I know when we start talking about like episodes for the podcast, this was on your list like from the start. This is one of the things you've been trying to get us into from like the get-go. So it's always interesting. I know there has been quite a big boom in podcasts as well that do true crime, but my starting point is a little bit more close to home. I know it sounds strange, but it was probably Crime Watch on the BBC, stopping up because I used to be on, I think it was 9 o'clock on a Thursday or Friday night, and shit, that was kind of scary for a kid. I thought some of the recreations and stuff like that. And when they used to show cameras, I know it used to be like this person was attacked or this person was murdered, but since Crime Watchers went off the air, you very rarely hear anything in the news these days.
On Crime Watch is actually on a morning now.
Really?
So it's not as
morning.
It's not as scary as what it used to be. It's on a morning on the BBC.
Yeah.
I always remember, because I was like you, Paul. I watched Crime Watch as a kid and terrified the life out of myself. And I think I stopped watching when it hit too close to home, and the Nikki Allen case came on.
Ah, right, yes.
And it's right next to where you live now, Michaela. That's where it happened, the block of flats.
Yeah.
There was a young
the bonded warehouse where the bonded warehouse is now.
Yeah, she was meant to walk to her grandmother's flat, which was a few doors away from where she lived, and she never came home, and it was terrifying. And I think that's why I stopped watching it. No,
I remember that as a kid, because I was living in Roker at the time, and literally when the news broke, because that was just over the water from us, and for about, I would say, a month after that, nobody left no kids were out playing. There was and like every parent took the kids to school that day, because I was only in primary school, so I remember it, because normally I lived literally 5 minutes walk away from the school, but for a month or 2 months after that happened, no kids actually weren't escorted to school. Either your parents took you or your next door neighbour took you. Was quite I'd say it's a scary time as a kid when that did happen. So yeah,
I can't remember it hitting shiny like that, to be honest. I don't think they cared. Not like Sunderland's issue, they can deal with it.
No.
Don't want to break it to Sam, but she lives in Sunderland. We're in Sunderland right now.
I know that, but it's like it's a bit of a distance away. You are a distance away from us.
Yeah, it's a canny bus ride to get to yours now. So.
Exactly, and we're a Durham postcode, so
yeah, that's bullshit.
Pretentious posh.
Hey, me knocking Sunderland. I moved to Manchester and I couldn't take it, so I ended up coming back here. So don't.
I live in Roker. I'm proud to be from Sunderland.
I used to live in DM Dot, so that's all right. We'll leave it at that. But yes, I can still remember that, and like when it was on Crime Watch, it was big news. But I don't think you hear any. I know when it does happen locally, but not as much these days, unless it's like widespread or it's like say a young kid. Do you hear as much these days? It still goes on, but probably is not as in.
No, not as not. Yeah, the last one I remember that was local was in Penshire.
Yeah.
And I was coming out of a friend's house in Herrington, which is about a 10-minute walk from where I live. And it was a derby day. So it was Sunderland versus Newcastle. The streets were empty because obviously derby day, everyone's watching the match. And there was a police car came past us and asked if they could take us back to where we were going to, because a young girl had gone missing.
Yeah.
And she was found in Penshire. And I think our stepdad or our dad was accused of it. I think he was. I think he wasn't charged, but
yeah,
that's the last time I remember a major case in my area. Can you remember it, Michaela?
Yeah, wasn't it? It was like Sarah Palin or something. I don't know. I can't remember the last name.
So that's from down south. That she definitely was nowhere near us. That's the little
No,
girl.
I was at the Millie Downer.
I'm sure it.
No.
Oh no. Sorry. Just I know it like it was like a name, wasn't it? You remember like her name, but unfortunately I can't remember her name.
That's right. Going back to because I was going to talk about this a bit later, but as we're talking about local and like I said, general crimes in the northeast at the moment, there was a TV show that was on recently. I know it's in the third season's just about come out, called Murder Town. I don't know if you've watched it. It's on the crime. One of the episodes was based in Sunderland. One of the Sunderland big cases that did come out. Trying to think of the name, because I last one Corrie doing the when they do or walking around talking to people and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But they've done the case. I don't know if you can remember it. It was the Stephen Grieverson case, the Sunderland Strangler. He actually killed people in Roker. He was like I think he was about 5 or 6 years older than me. And what he would do, he would take lads from school, hit them in his flat, and like from Monk Weymouth School, and then strangle them in his flat in Roker, and then take them to an allotment and set them on fire.
Oh no!
I've heard of this.
I've never heard of that ever.
Yeah, but it was called the Sunderland Strangler. But it was on a TV show called Murder Town. That's why I say because they actually describe him as a serial killer, because he killed more. Well, I think he killed 3 people. It might be more. I'm not 100% sure, but I remember it watching it because Nick, like my wife, she is obsessed with anything to do with serial killers and stuff, almost to the point where I get a little bit worried where I don't want to piss her off too much because I might be buried under the decking one day. But it's on Sky still, the show. It's on like say the crime channel now. If you go on to like say on demand, just type in Murder Town, and it's got 3 seasons of it. But the Sunderland Strangler, it's called. That was one I watched like not too long ago.
All right. Well, should we get into what we would class as our favourite documentary? Michaela, do you want to go first?
Yeah. So we'll talk about my stance on these kind of crime things have changed a lot over the years, which we can go to at another time. But honestly, one of my favourite.
So your favourite one, Michaela?
I have many favourites. I'm trying to like pick which ones. I really love like The Thin Blue Line, which is a Errol Morris documentary. I think I've said his name right. I probably haven't. I love like Bowling for Columbine, which is obviously it's about gun control, but it relates to like the crime of the mass shootings and that. But the one that's really I was like, that's how you do a documentary, that's how you make something, is the O.J. Simpson one, the Made in America.
Right, okay.
So it came out a couple of years ago, and it actually won Best Documentary at the Oscars because they have these weird rules. It's like if you play it at certain cinemas, because it's a series, but if you play it at certain cinemas at certain times and of its length, like it can be nominated for an Oscar. So it was nominated for best documentary, and it won for every reason because it is absolutely brilliant. It just like you think, oh, I know the O.J. Simpson trial,
No.
and it just goes into like why he was so big because like I was born in like '89, and obviously from Britain, so we didn't really understand like that he was such like a god to people.
Yeah.
Like this sports star, obviously it'd be like a David Beckham or something, and that's how shit I am at sports. That's the only person I can go to. And just it just showed how massive he was, and then it showed just like the layers upon layers of how like it, you know, it was race relation, but they actually used it disgustingly like for it because of what was happening with like the LA riots at the time. And they just go into like such amazing details about it. And then obviously like, what happened after, which I knew that he was back in prison. Well, he was back in prison, but I didn't know why. And I actually felt like at the end it was like, well, that's shocking. Like he went to prison for that, and he didn't go to prison for murdering his wife and that poor man. No. And it was just so beautifully done, with what I remember too, with respect too, and just like social, just the social culture of it all, and it was just such a good documentary.
It's on Disney Plus at the moment. If you want to watch it, it's a 5-part documentary. I'd say the first episode, if you want to understand how big of a god OJ was to the American public, the first episode gives you that because it goes into his whole career. I don't even think
it was absolutely huge. Like, say, even not just like being the American football star, like it was even in like movies. Like he was huge in the Naked Gun films and stuff. That's where my first introduction to OJ was. But
probably for a lot of us over here.
But I've not seen that one. I know there's been a lot of documentaries about O.J. Simpson in, like, say, in the last 10 years, I would say. Like the one.
This is the one, though. Yeah. This is the one to watch because it breaks everything down. It's like every misconception you thought you had is just completely put right in this documentary. Michaela was the one who introduced me to it, and me and Ant absolutely ate it up. It's nearly, how many, like 5 hours or something, and it's worth every second of it. It is absolutely phenomenal. That was a good choice, that one, Michaela. But Bowling for Columbine, after reading Dave Cullen's Columbine book, I can't get on board with that documentary anymore.
I can understand why, because the thing is with people with documentaries, they take it as, some people, not obviously all, take it as fact. This is fact. This is a documentary. You are telling facts. When actually, it's a film by Michael Moore, starring Michael Moore. He's the star of it. It's his opinion. He's narrating it. And I think a lot of people kind of really forget that point in documentaries. Like, this is not fact. This is someone putting a story together.
Yeah, and that's where a lot of these type of things as well, though, now, because that's the problem with the internet. As you say, with us three faces on the film, any arsehole can get on the internet and give their opinion and show, like, tell a story or say this is facts. That's the problem. What we've got these days. It's not a problem, like we say, as I said, it gives us an outlet, but I think too many people do believe it's back in the same back in mentality as they had back in the day when, oh God, it's in the newspaper, it must be real.
That still has to do. That still stands on today. But Bowling for Columbine, I love the gun control part of it, obviously, because it's everything. I believe anyway, everything he says in that gun control is right. And at the time, the story about Dylan and oh my gosh, these names totally gone out of my head. Dylan and Eric. The story of them two was two goth kids, really badly done by, completely and utterly bullied to the point where they just snapped. When in actual fact, that wasn't the case at all. They were not. If anything, they were the bullies. They were one of them. Dave Cullen really puts more blame on one than he does the other. What else? The trenchcoat mafia part of it, where the media completely honed in on this trenchcoat mafia and they're the evilest of people. And in actual fact, they're a bunch of nerds who played Doom, and they weren't even part of that crew. They didn't even participate with them at all. And that's why I don't particularly like it now, but I'm kind of backtracking on myself because I get, but I get what I get at the time why it was like.
I think at the time it was Michael Moore's sensationalism opinion where he had his own agenda that he was trying to
absolutely
to do his own thing, which comes across massively in that film.
That's what the story was, because what the media did when after the shooting took place, the media went straight to these traumatized children who had just been through an experience they never in their 100 years thought they would go through, and said, tell us about these boys, who are they? And they just started spewing shite because they had no idea of what to say, and that became the narrative, that became the story.
That's probably why that's probably why I wouldn't class Bullen. Like, I know in a theory, Bullen of Columbine is a true crime in a way, but I wouldn't class it that way. As again, it's
it's like framed in true crime.
Exactly, it's like Michael Moore wanting to make a film and say, right, this is going to be my topic. This is where I'm going to pander towards. This is my agenda. I'm going to use these elements, and that's why I never really got on board with that. But going back to what Michaela said again, what the O.J. Simpson one, the one I watched not recently, it was a few years ago, was the American Crime Story, from the makers of American Horror Story, where they had Cuba Gooding Jr. playing O.J. I thought that was well done, and had David Schwimmer as a lawyer.
The one actor in there who did not look like the person he was meant to be playing was Cuba Gooding Jr. as O.J., because the rest of them looked like the people they were meant to be playing.
John Travolta was completely transformed. It was scary. But it was interesting, like, to see how the prosecution saw this as a slam dunk, and then everything went on, and it kind of fucked up and it was interesting to see that aspect. So that's why I like that part. But I will keep an eye out for that one. That one sounds a bit interesting.
It's on Disney, Paul, at the moment. It is honestly it is worth your time.
I feel like it's on BBC too. I could be wrong there,
but it's definitely worth your time.
Cool.
My favorite documentary will always be the one that really got us, because like I like crime. I always have done. I've been fascinated ever since I remember picking up a Jack the Ripper book when I was a kid. Because I don't know if Michaela knows this, my dad actually is interested in Jack the Ripper. Or used to be back in the day, and he had a Jack the Ripper book.
I didn't know that.
I picked it up. Oh yeah, that and what is it? The Last Crusade. They're looking for the Crusades. He used to be interested in that. And I was fascinated then. But Paradise Lost was the first documentary. I think the second one was out by the time I'd seen the first one. So the second one really explains the impact of the first one, because the first one is a documentary crew who is the guy who has made some choice decisions over the last couple of years, especially with the Ted Bundy documentary that he did. But the Paradise Lost one was him. The first one was them going into this small town of 3 kids who were arrested and charged for the murder of another 3 children. And it was it was around the Satanic Panic. And if it wasn't for this documentary crew, we would never have known who the West Memphis 3 were. Damien Eccles would most likely be dead now, because these small towns have a tendency for doing shit like this and getting away with it. And this documentary made sure that didn't happen. Now, the second and third one are quite problematic because some narratives get put in there.
They do what they did to them? They point the finger at people.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what that town did to them kids.
They did, yeah. Mark Byers becomes your villain in the second documentary because they pin... Mark Byers is a very complex person, and if you ever get a chance to read The Devil's Knot, it explains how complex this person actually is. And he becomes a focal point because he has a bit of a sketchy background. And it is what Michaela says. They do to him what the town did to these 3 boys. And in actual fact, what they should have been doing is looking at someone completely different. And west of Memphis, they focus on that. So there's 2 documentaries of the West Memphis 3. There's Paradise Lost, and then there's West of Memphis. And West of Memphis is fantastic because it shows you the work that went into getting these guys out, because they weren't kids when they got out, and they went into a plea which has only ever been done once, which is called an Alford plea, where they basically have to admit that they did this crime in order to get out of jail. It's backwards. It really is backwards, but it got a man off death row.
Yeah.
And they're still to this day, are still fighting because DNA that they want testing, which was going to be part of the retrial, because if these guys went to retrial, which they were planning on to before the Alford plea, they would have walked off, and the state of Arkansas would have actually had to pay them a shit ton of money. And the DNA they wanted to test was destroyed in a fire, and they are fighting over this. Are you moving about, Michaela?
I thought my dog was upstairs. Just went to go see if he was there. He was not.
No, I remember this one because I think with, like I say, the people we used to hang about with, like Sam, we used to be like part of the alternative crowd, so it kind of hit home when this first came out, because it was quite relatable. Not to say that we were ever chastised and accused of murder and stuff like that.
Bloody greebles.
Yeah. But just because we were a bit different, we probably were looked at a bit differently or treated a little bit differently to the norm or what people expect as the norm. But yeah, like I say, it is quite a harrowing story of like what could have happened and what still does happen in American justice systems. Like today, just because even if you're deemed or don't have enough evidence, they can always say circumstantial evidence isn't really a big thing in some of the counties. It's like, it's what a judge or 12 people can be misled to believe. If that's the scary thing as well. That's why I will never commit a crime or go anywhere where I could be potentially implicated in a crime in America.
I'll stay away from small towns in America. But west of Memphis is a more compact documentary. I mean, Paradise Lost, the first one, is just phenomenal, because it's giving you the information that you need. The second and third one, I just wouldn't bother, because it is, like I say, it's very problematic. But West of Memphis shows
it's a good roundup, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, and it shows you the people who were actually involved, because that Paradise Lost don't do that. I mean, we know the likes. If you know the case, then you know that Johnny Depp was involved to a degree, and they used him as a focal point, where in actual fact it was Peter Jackson and Fran Walsh who were the main and
Eddie Vedder, thank you.
Eddie Vedder, the beautiful Eddie Vedder, who says one of the most harrowing statements in that documentary, when he said something like, I was 30 odd year old when this happened, and I assumed a couple of years later would be out and laughing and things will be happy, and then I'm nearly 50 and we're still here.
Yeah, but he's proper funny in it, because he's like, oh yeah, I'm Eddie Vedder, I'm gonna get them out. It's like,
so it was a bit like
crack on with them lovely,
was a bit like
those lovely eyes.
Paul Gascoigne turning up with his fishing rod and a bit.
Oh my god,
and his bit of chicken. But,
his chicken and 4 tinnies.
Yeah. Morty, I know Morty is me mate. Sorry.
Yeah, but I think West of Memphis is definitely a better one. If you are interested in the West Memphis 3, is definitely a better one to look into, because it goes into it tells you what you need to know, as opposed to what a documentary film crew are trying to put out there. And I never used to feel like that of the Paradise Lost ones, but
it's one of them things. It's when you see it at the time, but it's with as Michaela said, with documentaries, it's what they're showing you, what they want to show you. I think a lot with the recent one as well, like Making a Murderer, they were showing it showed one side of you. I could never get into it, but it was one side of you on an aspect where they were leaving out so much. So again, it depends on what the person who's giving you the film wants you to see at the end of the day. But no, that's a good one. I say I always think about going back to that one, but I keep looking at it and thinking it's gone. It's the time has passed for me for that one. I think.
There's an ending really too.
Yeah, we got out.
Before you go on to yours, Paul, West of Memphis is directed by Amy J. Berg, and
one of the best.
I think obviously we're talking about films and that, and a lot of documentaries are made by women. So I just want to give a little shout out because there's two that I love, and Amy J. Berg's one of them, and she does Deliver Us from Evil, which is a lovely documentary about paedophilia in the Catholic Church, An Open Secret, again, about paedophilia in Hollywood.
Absolutely, the Open Secret absolutely broke me as a human being. Me and Ant both, we were watching it and we were like, right, we need to put Deliver Us from Evil did the same. It's heartbreaking, but Amy is so good at getting to the nitty gritty of it, and really getting people's true feelings on it. There's no bullshit in our documentaries, and the way she styles them are perfect to follow as well. I love that woman.
She also did a Janis Joplin documentary just to lighten the mood up a bit.
I don't think the mood's going to be that happy and jolly in this kind of subject. I'm not expecting to talk about the Goonies in this week, so don't worry. If I can, because my love of, let's say, true crime, I've always been interested, but I've never been, a huge fan where I've delved deep into them. If there's something that I'm interested in, I've always, I'll watch about it. It's probably since I've been with Nick that I've been watching more. Now, my favourite one was a really weird one. It's quite recent as well. It was only in 2018. It was a 4-parter on Netflix that came out. It was called Evil Genius.
So good.
It shocked us as well because the footage they use, I'd never thought that in a million years they would actually show what they did. So basically, the premise of this was basically this poor pizza delivery guy got a bomb strapped around his neck and was told to go and rob a bank. And the police stopped him and, told him he couldn't go. And he was saying, I've got a timer, I've got to go and deliver this thing, or to get this bomb off my neck, it's going to explode. They didn't believe him. And what happens? The bomb goes off and blows his head off. And the footage is actually in the documentary, and it's harrowing. I never thought they would show it. I thought they would have cut away or just explain it.
Well, don't watch the beginning of Paradise Lost then, because you see the first 2 seconds of Paradise Lost is the crime scene with the boys. You see the boys. But you actually see the element in motion. You see the explosion. You see the
guy's head get blown off.
Yeah, in the actual documentary, which and it was all orchestrated by this very weird and psychotic woman who had these two men obsess over and do all these things. So she physically was a Charles Manson type approach where she used her womanly wiles, shall we say, to get these two blokes to do her bidding and do her ways. And this poor bloke who was a delivery driver, I think they said he had special needs as well, bless him. And they took advantage of him, and they knew of him because they hung out together, and they wouldn't class them as friends. They were just saying, oh, they would always have this guy around. So they ordered a pizza. The guy turned up and they strapped this bomb around his neck and told him, when they went back and they tried to recase it, there was actually a clues where to go for this guy. So he had to go to a certain place to get one key that would release part of the bomb, and that would give him an extra 20 minutes or so to get to the other part to release the second part. It was so evil, to the word evil, and cleverly done, but it was something you've seen in a film that you'd never think it was real life. And I know it's American, all Americans are batshit crazy at some points, but
I'm sure they'd love to hear that.
Don't disrespect our American listeners, by the way.
I've seen the comments on the Facebook group, they're all batshit crazy, don't worry. But the woman that was in, her name was Marjorie, I believe, and I think from a younger days she was a quite attractive woman, but and I think, like I say, I'm trying to go recall it as well. In one of the episodes, they actually killed one of her ex-boyfriend who was mean to her, and they found her in the freezer, and that was how they actually caught two of the other blokes who was involved. But it was just bizarre, and the whole build-up and like the whole idea of it, of getting thinking they could get away with it as well. That was the mindset. I was like, if I was going to rob a bank, that would not be the way I would do it. Like, not saying I've planned it, but it was just horrible in the ways I've never experienced. But I could not stop watching it. But with what I don't like about most true crime documentaries, the repeat stuff over and over again. You get the same information, the same type of person who comes on and says the same thing. Like, I found that with the Ted Bundy stuff lately, that it's just a rehash.
We'll get into them.
We'll get into that.
Yeah, it's just a rehash of information that we've known, we don't need to know about. It's not really factual, but this was all new stuff. Like, each episode was given a new thing, leading it down a different path. That's why I found it was so intriguing and quite interesting, and it was a perspective I've never seen. Now, other one, again, I know I'm cheating by saying two. The other one was The Night Stalker with Richard Ramirez. But the reason I liked the Netflix one, the recent one that they did, it wasn't from the killer's perspective. It was from the two cops who was investigating the murder. And it was showing what they went through, what they did, and that element, that side, that's what I liked. It was new information. It wasn't just glorifying the killer, which a lot of these true crimes things do, which, again, it doesn't always sit well with me, which, again, it shouldn't, because I'm not a psychopath. But I like seeing other people's perspectives and seeing what they went through. That's more interesting to me than knowing what was going on with the serial killer.
Yeah.
Well, first up is the Evil Genius one. I remember one night, the nights when me and Stephen used to flip and watch all these crime stuff, seeing that on a list somewhere, but all it was is that this guy got a bomb strapped to him and died, and that was it.
Yeah.
No one knew anything else from it. So when this documentary came out, I was like, holy shit, there's an ending to this story. I never knew that there was an ending. So that was really cool, in a crazy, horrible way. And the Richard Ramirez one, this is when my nerdism is on high alert. It's because they have talked many times about them all the time. And to me, it's kind of the same thing. We can get into it about the victims have fucking got nothing to do with them, but it's the same thing. It's the same egotistical thing. It's not the serial killer, but it's on these police officers. And yes, of course, they are not they're not the killer, but it's still this ego of look what I did. And it's maybe we should pay more respect for the people that he tortured and murdered.
Yeah, let me pat myself on the back a few times. Yeah. The Richard Ramirez one, it was the only interesting part because obviously I've read books on Richard Ramirez, I've listened to podcasts on him. I feel like there's nothing more that I would need to know. The only one bit I never knew was how the community came together, and that's how he was caught.
Yeah,
I didn't know that bit.
I did not know was that the community came together and he was caught that way.
He was beating the shit out of him as well.
as you would. Shall we go into the problematic parts of these true crime documentaries? Because I feel that Richard Ramirez one kind of leads into it nicely.
Yeah, the only thing as well I thought was quite interesting about the Richard Ramirez was the hotel he stayed at was based on, the American Horror Story hotel, and was
Cecily or Cecily? I don't know how they pronounce it over there. Cecily.
And the Cecil, I think it was called, but it was basically it was the hotel where the young lass.
We'll get into that one as well because I have some thoughts on that one too.
I think when he was saying we'll get into it and we never talk about any of it.
But
it's cut out. Bye.
I'm going to get into it right now because this is one of my major pet hates on true crime. I love true crime documentaries because you are getting fact of a case. That's it. The people can give their opinions. I totally get that. I don't want to say the fun part of it, but the interesting part of true crime is giving your thoughts and opinions on what you believe could have happened. What I cannot fucking stand is internet sleuths.
Yeah.
I hate these people. And the Elisa Lam documentary that they did on the Cecil Hotel proved my point to how dangerous these people actually are. Very dangerous.
They did go to stupid lengths that like they went to, like especially like when the time and like the hotel, like the elevator going down and stuff like that, saying it was impossible, this has been tampered with. Because again, you're messing with people's lives by putting that shit out there.
Exactly. That poor guy who is very different himself anyway, who would have gotten criticism because of the way he looked, then gets harassed and hounded to the point where, you know, he's suicidal because these people, these fucking idiots, have decided he did this. This is, and you've got no evidence, nothing to back that up with. Just your thoughts and opinions have managed to get this man to a point where he's on the verge of killing himself because of what you're doing. But now, the Elisa Lam one.
Do you not think that's a little bit of human nature as well? Because I think everyone's always had that element. If you even go back to the Salem witch trials, pointing at a woman because I think there's a witch burner. But again, someone's a bit different and not fitting into their pattern and fits into what they think could be their narrative.
Exactly. No, you're right. You're exactly right. It's exactly the same thing. It's just done on a more dangerous level because it's more accessible to everyone else now. Their opinions can get out there to more people. The Elisa Lam case is heartbreaking. It is quite strange, but and I said this many years ago. She was bipolar. She looks like she's having an episode when she's in that elevator.
Yeah.
She managed to climb up to there. She probably saw water, thought to herself, I'm going to go for a swim. She took her clothes off. She put them on the side. She jumped in, and that roof was actually left open.
Yeah.
There's nothing mysterious about it to where someone's done it. I know there's some weird, freaky circumstances on it.
Yeah.
But
I think that's the whole, you know, like going back, it's a bit of a long thing of like exorcisms and stuff like that, and like the ghost stuff, and where they're just like, oh, it's this, and and it's just like, this is kind of just puts that narrative in like a modern day perspective of like, oh, it's creepy and that, and it's like, well, no, this woman had mental health issues.
Yeah,
and that's it.
No, but that's not a story. That's not interesting for people.
No,
so
it's not.
That's why it leads to that. But
there was one thing of these internet sleuths that really got me to the point where I felt like throwing something off me telly. One of them turned around and said, "Well, I don't believe that she would have not taken our medication." The fuck do you know? What the fuck do you know of this person who you don't know her personally enough to know that she wouldn't not or take her medication? Oh my God, it infuriates us.
That's the problem, because like I say, everyone's got an opinion on it, and everyone likes to think that they're smarter than everyone else. That's the problem.
We've listened to Serial. We know our shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I know Sam hasn't watched this, and I don't know if you've watched it, Paul, but I don't know if you've seen Don't Fuck with Cats.
I can't watch it.
Yeah, I thought there's a little black kitty behind you before. Yeah. So I watched it, and honestly, I couldn't watch them scenes. They were horrible. I had my partners like go, "What's happening?" But there's a bit in it again with this whole editing and telling the story and telling what story you want to tell. It's that they just brush over, because again, if you've not seen it, it's about these videos of this guy killing cats, and he also does other stuff. Like I think he tortures a dog, and then he murders the person. Filmed it all, and these internet sleuths actually successfully find him, and then he gets taken away and all this stuff.
Yeah,
it is interesting. Don't get us wrong. You know, your voyeurism comes out of it, but they completely brush under the rug that they found somebody. Were like, that's him. He did it, and he killed himself. Yeah. They just completely brush it under the rug, like, oh well, sorry. And it's like, that's why this thing is so dangerous.
Yeah.
So dangerous.
You are not a detective. No. You are not smart. No. You're a dick on a computer like everybody else.
Certainly. And like I say, with the internet now being so accessible, everyone can be involved. And like, if you point that type of thing pointed at you is hard to wipe off the internet as well, because in every corner, like if you go to a job interview, and like most places now search your name. So if it comes up that you've been accused of murder or accused of a crime, that's never going to go away. That never will disappear at that point.
No, it doesn't. It ruins people's lives. It's no different than these idiots who go out of their way to feeling like they're justice warriors because they are catching these paedophiles.
Yeah, I hate them too.
They have no idea what work is going on behind the scenes. That they could, if they take one person out of a potential ring, that ring's broken. And they did that. And they don't give a shit because they feel that they are doing justice on this one person. When in actual fact, the police have probably got a team on who are working against thousands of them.
But the problem I've got with that, the problem I've got with that as well, it's not just the person, fair enough, it's not just the person, rightly or wrongly, the person who they've got is guilty. But in the broadcast picture, it's not just that person's picture that affects. It's the family in the background. It's basically the people that they don't know about. Because no one, living in Sunderland, I've seen people's windows being put out. I've seen people being attacked for being accused for that type of thing as well. And people's families don't deserve that. I know that when the police do catch people who do these things rightly, they do it in a way where it's not broadcast around and the families can live their lives, because it's not fair on them. They're not supporting them. They're not part of that. That's the aspect I really find disgusting about that type of element.
Yeah, it's disgusting. Throwing it back to documentaries, there's a documentary called The Pharmacist that's on Netflix, and it's kind of a bit like that. It's about this pharmacist who loses his child. He gets murdered on a drugs deal. And then he becomes like a sleuth in himself, but in his community, and he's like, this is happening here, this is happening here, and the police are actually doing investigations behind the scenes. Like the FBI are doing this, and they're just, because you can't see anything, they're just like, well, got it.
Leave it
please
be.
stop. Yeah, and it's heartbreaking because it's just a father who wants to have justice for his son and other people like that, and you just you can't do this. It's very frustrating, but it is I would say it's worth a watch.
Completely agree. So it's quite interesting, like you say, with all these internet sleuths out there and stuff. Funny enough, it's not a true crime documentary, but I've started watching a new show. Like I say, I've been telling everyone about because it's absolutely brilliant. But the whole premise is these three characters live in an apartment building, and they're obsessed with true crime podcasts. And then there's a murder in the building, and the three of them come together to try and solve this murder and do their own podcast, and it's called Only Murders in the Building. It stars Steve Martin, Martin Short, and Selena.
Is that what that's about?
Yes, I'm going to watch that when I go home. Me and Ant are going to watch it.
It's a few episodes in now, but it's brilliant. I thought it was just going to be a stupid, daft comedy, but it actually is quite graphic and serious. There's a lot of F-bombs get thrown about, and Steve Martin, it's the best thing I've ever seen. I've seen him in a long time. He's playing quite a serious role, and he's playing a little bit of a sad character.
And Martin Short back together again is just a duo made in heaven, really. I can't wait. Me and Ant are gonna, when I go home, I'm home next week, and me and Ant are gonna sit and watch it because I'm generally looking forward to it. But there's, as much as I hate internet sleuths with a fucking passion, there was a really good true crime documentary called I'll Be Gone in the Dark. It's a 6-part documentary series. I've watched the series, I've read the book, it's all about the Golden State Killer. The book is something else. Like, I'm a slow reader. I was reading that slow because of how detailed it is. The documentary.
Did you put it in the freezer?
At some point, I probably
next to Koju.
At some point, I probably did, because it was just it took a lot out of us. It's all about the Golden State Killer, and it is the work that.
Are we assuming people know who the Golden State Killer is?
The Golden State Killer targeted the Golden State. He was given that name by the woman who really took the took the initiative to research, not sleuth, but research.
She was a journalist.
She was a journalist, and she was called Michelle McNamara. He was the wife of Patton Oswalt. She was a true crime writer. She had a blog that got turned into a news article, like in the New York Times or something, which led to her book that she was writing on the case that she'd been following of a serial, it's awful, he was a serial rapist. I don't believe he killed anyone, but
I think he killed 2 people.
Did he?
He definitely killed someone.
I'll hold my hands up. I've tried watching this documentary. It's too slow.
It's hard.
It's too slow. It's too slow going for mine.
It's hard.
I couldn't go through it as well.
So yeah, he targeted women, and eventually moved into couples as well. He was almost like a night stalker in a way, because he always hit at night. And they say he was very strange, because he treated the house like his own.
Yeah.
Like he would come in, he would eat out the refrigerator, and if there was a couple in there, he would put the husband on his front with plates stacked on his back, and told him, if your wife's dead, basically, if these plates smash, he would whisper.
Yeah.
He would disguise his voice, so he would like whisper in a weird way to them. There was a town hall meeting, because obviously it started in the 70s, and he was only caught a couple of years ago, but there was a town hall meeting, and all these men were like, well, if this guy came into my house, I would do this, that, and the other. The guy who got up and said that was attacked not a couple of days later. He was in that town hall meeting. He heard every fucking word they were saying about him, because I believe he was a policeman. He was law enforcement. But Michelle investigated, and she worked with the police. She didn't go out of her way to halt an investigation, or she just wanted to help, and she was getting this information. Unfortunately, Michelle passed away before she could ever find out that he was caught. And the book is just phenomenal. In all honesty, I've tried to block a lot of it out, because it is
it's really hard
one to read. I thought the Columbine book was hard. That was it was on another level. The documentary eases what in actual fact the work she put into it. So I have a lot of respect for the likes of Michelle McNamara than I do for these internet dickheads who put themselves into investigations when they have no idea. Like, Michelle knew what she couldn't do.
No, but I think there's a difference. Because everyone likes to think they're a detective in a way, and everyone likes to think they'll work things out. It's when people put themselves in a position where they're hindering the situation or hindering the investigation. That's where, in my opinion, it becomes dangerous. But like I say, if you've got information or if you've worked something out and then passing that information on or helping, I think that's the differentiate you can make. But again, I can understand like the viewpoints for a lot of people. Like, again, the morbid curiosity of it all, it can be enticing to be involved to that level, and to think that you're smart enough to catch a serial killer. It's like it's one of like I know it's a comedy show, but Jake Peralta type thing. He's always wanted to catch a serial killer. So, in Brooklyn Nine-Nine. But my biggest problem, again, I've always felt uncomfortable. I think Hollywood does it worse, and there's been a big change in it in what I've seen in UK, like true crime, UK documentaries, where it's instead of glory, like America's all about glorifying the killers. Like they had fucking Zac Efron playing Ted Bundy. I know everyone said Ted Bundy was attractive, but he was never that good looking.
Don't get started.
Get started. What do you need? I want to talk about.
I'm waiting my turn. Always not finished.
Like I say, with the American style, it kind of glorifies the murderers, and it's a side note that the victims are. I know recently with the British ones that there's been two big ones that I've watched recently where it actually give you the victim's viewpoint and actually had victims in. One was Des, the Dennis Nielsen one, not the David Tennant dramatisation. The actual one I think was on Channel 4 where they had victims that survived or families of the victims given their accounts rather than saying that.
I'd be interested in watching that because Dennis Nielsen really grinds my gears. He is one of these who it's almost like he did it for the infamy. Just like, and he loves to talk.
I think that was afterwards. I think after I think from what I've watched, and not to like he obviously had problems, but I think it was more he didn't like to be alone and he hated people leaving him. That was the element where because he always kept the bodies with him for a few days afterwards. So that was one of the aspects. That was one of the aspects. But the other one, which was I know it's been done to death, but the Rippers. But it went back and showed how poor and how shit the police were treating these women because they were a certain element of what they believed to be prostitutes. Are
you talking about the one what was on the BBC?
I don't know if it was the BBC or ITV.
It's called the Yorkshire Ripper Files, true crime story or something.
I really enjoyed that one
because it went back and showed elements from the families again of the victims and what the killing what impact it had on them. That's the story that they should have been told, not because. And it shone light on how bad these middle-aged, puffed-up men viewed women, and it really did upset us. And I know I'm a middle-aged, chubby white guy thinking about, probably in the same dramatic as what the police were back then. But the way they just never even give them a second thought, or the prostitutes, they deserved it. That was just horrible.
Mm-hmm. Paul, you're ringing my bells.
Yeah.
Because I'm gonna
go
start. Right. So I have been a big crime fan forever and ever and ever, as much as I remember, and was morbidly obsessed, but loved serial killers. Was oh my god, this is amazing. I have even gone a step further, and I'll admit it because I fully do not agree with it anymore, is that I've bought murderabilia before.
Mm-hmm.
So I bought an image from a guy who killed this celebrity, and now I totally don't agree with it. This is when I was a lot younger, and I just I had this obsession, and it's not until recently, and I don't know if it's just because I'm older now, in my 30s, and I was just I can't this just doesn't. I can't do it anymore.
Mm-hmm. It doesn't feel right, type thing. It doesn't.
Yeah. So in my work, so I work in the arts, and at the minute I'm doing an exhibition all about femicide. Mm-hmm. So femicide is the murdering of women by men. Mm-hmm. Now I've been doing a lot of feminist issues and that in my work for years now, and this one and honestly I just started it this year. It just knocked it all into place. Of just I can't watch these documentaries anymore, and it's because it's so glorified of this one person. Mm-hmm. And yes, there are women serial killers. I do understand this, and it just kind of puts in it just breeds that misogyny of these women, and as you just said, because that documentary was brilliant, and I think we should have these documentaries, but change the narrative. Mm-hmm. As that one on BBC, the Yorkshire Files. I don't think it's called that, but first of all, directed by women, for and telling the stories of these women. I didn't even know the in it, so they had women getting murdered. Women, even if they were prostitutes, they weren't even prostitutes. It's just so much easier
to frame them that
to
way.
say the prostitutes. Even the Jack the Ripper, there's a book I've got downstairs. I think it's called Five Women, not prostitutes. They had lives. They had families.
Mhm.
Like, and that documentary, which is not on the BBC anymore. I don't know where you can find it, but it's so friggin' good of how you can do it. Have shown like the racism in the police case too, because there was a black woman who came out first and said, I got hit by the head, he looks like this, and he's got a Yorkshire accent. Well, for how many years were they looking for a Mackham?
Yeah.
Because of them tapes.
Yeah.
And
so when they had a view from a woman, but because she was black, a woman, and I think she also had learning difficulties from that, they were just like, nah, not paying attention to her, we're going to pay attention to this tape. And just destroyed lives because of this. And the thing is, with it, see, I've started and I can't stop now, is that they had these reclaim the streets nights because they were told you can't go out. Like, you can't go out.
We're having that these days as well, though. That's the thing.
Exactly. That was the 70s.
Yeah, we're still having that now. And again, I'm not going to hold my hands up and say I understand what you're going through, because I'll never understand. Like, I worry when, like, say, my wife goes on a night out, and I always say, get a taxi home. If she's getting a bus home, I'll wait at the bus stop till she gets off the bus.
Yeah.
I shouldn't have to do that, because I don't expect Nick to do that for me. And that's fright. That shouldn't be in this day and age. And I think as a bloke, I'll never get into that mindset where you are worried about. Like I said, that's upsetting. I'll admit it upsets me to think that we still live in a world where that's still not okay.
Yeah,
there's a chance that you might not make it home on a night out just because of your
and this poor lassie who's just died last Friday, they're giving out fucking rape alarms like to people, and it's like they don't do anything. What are they gonna do? Nothing.
We had an incident at my workplace years ago where women were getting attacked outside of my work. My work gave us a rape alarm, was using a security guard to escort us to the car park, because we have two car parks, the main one, and we have one which is a bit of a distance, and actually to get to the car park is a dirt road that has no lights in it whatsoever. This rape alarm that my work gave me, now I know what they were doing, and it was fun, it was good at the time, but this rape alarm was this big, and you had to pull the top off, to put the top underneath, to then spray something, to then pull it out to put the alarm on, and it's like, I might as well have just thrown it at them. But we were taught at a young age how to hold our keys in a position that could do damage. We shouldn't have to do that.
But pulling it back to like documentaries and that, it just feeds into this fetishization. Yes, I said that word very well.
Better than I can pronounce it, don't worry.
Of these like myths and monsters kind of thing, and it's like, no, these were boring ass people who maybe had possible mental health issues. Yes, that's a different argument in itself and case, but it shouldn't be. We should tell the stories, but like that documentary, something a bit different. And I know like they've done a Dennis Nielsen one. It was more the one with David Tennant, and where they were like, well, we're talking about the victims and that. I didn't personally see that when I watched it.
The David Tennant one, that was all about his performance as Dennis Nielsen.
Yeah,
I think it was Channel 4 or Channel 5 ran a documentary simultaneously with the Dennis Nielsen one, and it had the victims on. Like one of the victims' wives at the time had an argument, kicked him out, said don't come back, and he never did, because he ran into Dennis Nielsen on when he was out sorrows away. That was the aspects that was quite interesting. Like I say, don't get us wrong, I did enjoy the David Tennant performance, because nowhere did David Tennant portray Dennis Nielsen in any good light at all. It was quite sinister, and it felt probably more like a horror film than a true crime. But
and honestly, just don't get us wrong. You watch those true crimes, like the interesting. You want to get in the mind of people like that, but it's just like they really have to be like, these families are still around.
Yeah. and they've got to live through
Still
watching
there.
that as well.
Yeah, and like you're watching fucking the 17th million Ted Bundy bloody documentary, and yes, he was so fucking unattractive. I don't get this thing. Like, oh, he's so attractive. It's like, really?
He wasn't like I say, he wasn't as clever as he made out as well, though. That's the thing. They always made him out to be this most intelligent, brilliant person.
It's that he was a white man who can talk properly.
And who had some
intelligence. You can get away with it a lot.
Yeah, he had a bit of intelligence about him, and unfortunately, it backfired. Yeah. The Ted Bundy documentary that came out, the Joe Berginger who did the
there was the tapes of Ted Bundy and the tapes of Charles Manson that got released recently, and literally it was just the same stuff that we've heard over the last 10 years.
Over and over again.
Yeah,
Manson does not interest me anymore. Yeah. After reading Helter Skelter, I never want to watch or listen to anything to do with Charles Manson again. But the Ted Bundy documentary was and even the film glamorized.
I didn't watch it.
So much. Don't watch it. It had me. The only bit that was interesting was the last 10 minutes where you see a psychotic break in him.
Yeah.
You see the actual person he is, as opposed to this glamour. And I know it's from the point of view of his ex-girlfriend. I totally get that.
But that gets lost in that film, I think. It's supposed to be point of view, but it's all about Zac Efron and being Ted Bundy. But as well, another one that I recently watched thought was going to be a different take, because I did find The Killing at the time quite interesting. The Son of Sam's documentary on Netflix was the biggest pile of shit.
Oh, I turned it off.
Yeah, it was so boring. They didn't even get into the fact that David Berkowitz may potentially not have been the guy who did it, but might have, or it could have been the guy who did it, and there were other people involved. They didn't even. They just solely focused on David Berkowitz because he said, "My dog told me to do this."
But that was, like I said, that was just repeated over and over, and that's a lot of the, like I say, you get these talking heads on these documentaries as well that give their opinions and stuff. But like I say, I think Hollywood at the moment are over glamorizing. I know we're getting all the other ones that's coming out of the woodwork now. Like again, I've just seen that. The Jeffrey Dahmer's coming out.
Dahmer is someone who I've never touched the surface on ever. Never touched it, and I don't know if it's because I can't get it.
Because you don't like cannibalism?
I don't like cannibalism, but I've never been able to watch it.
We love it.
I've never gotten the one you watch, Michaela, the files, the Dahmer files.
Yeah.
I've never been able to find a copy of that to watch, and I don't want to watch anything other than that. I don't want to.
No, on Netflix.
No. I think it was. I'm not sure.
If it is, I've not seen it, but I've never been able to find a copy of it. I don't want to go on a deep dive of Jeffrey Dahmer.
Yeah.
One, cannibalism freaks us out majorly, and two, it's a lot. Yeah. There's so much.
Yeah, but what I was just about to say as well. What I was about to say as well. What I know. The big one during the lockdown was the fucking Tiger King, which again I could not get away with. They are actually bringing out the second season that's coming out soon, the Tiger King 2.
Insane.
Which
can't wait.
Oh, come on!
How hideous it is again.
It's a funny one, that one, because honestly, I'll put my hands up. I completely enjoyed it, but the more again, it's the thing with me. Like the more I think about it, I'm like, they just completely exploited a lot of broken drug addict people, and the only little good thing I can think of coming of it is a bit more highlight on like animal abuse.
Cruelty,
You totally forget about that while you're watching this documentary. You totally forget that all these animals are being completely and utterly abused and neglected, and it's awful. You focus so much on Joe Exotic that you forget the actual underlining of what the documentary is about.
He's just feeding these poor bastards with meth and like not even mentioning it in the documentary.
No.
But I do think that the UK side of things are doing it a little bit better these days. Like I think Michaela mentioned at the very start, like Britain's most evil. I know it's probably on to the 7th season or something now. It does highlight a few ones that you probably would never have heard of, or crimes.
British Darkest Taboos as well as another
crimes
one.
that shook Britain.
Yeah,
Like
like stuff like that. That's been broadcast quite much. And I know I mentioned like the Murder Town one. Like I said, that's a new season coming out soon. But them are highlighting like murders that's happening like close by to us in the last few years, and you'd never even heard a thing about. And that again, that's what I'm finding quite interesting. Like hearing them side of things. Again, it's.
I think that's what I like too. I really like isolate. Not well, they're not isolated. Let's be clear, they are not isolated cases. But like stories of like individual. You know, like it's not like he was evil and what was him. It was just like this person did this. And what I absolutely love it in documentary form and everything, is trials, court trials.
Right.
And that kind of goes back to the Memphis ones too.
Yeah.
They're so interesting. There's one on Sky, and I cannot remember its name. I said to Sam, you've got to watch it. And it's about the trial of a kid who was like this promising football star, and he gets accused of molesting a child.
Right. Yeah.
And and yes, obviously so heavy, but it's the trial and how how they did it and how fucked up it is, and it like I honestly can't remember what it's called, but it was so good, and I love a trial. Like I love them. Like I'd rather watch a trial.
Yeah, but no, the ones that, like I said, I think the big one that I'm obsessed with at the moment, and I'm excited because the new episode starts on Monday, is 24 Hours in Police Custody. And I know it's a really strange one, but
for me to watch that.
Yeah, but like I said,
oh my god, we watched one, didn't we, Sam? And we're just raging at each other.
Yeah, there was one where a lass that was like trying to get someone to kill a ex-boyfriend or a boyfriend and stuff, and she was pretending to be like handicapped, and she kept on saying that she was, when the police arrested her, she lied down saying her back's hurting her, to the point where she got took to the hospital to try and get the sympathy vote. But I was so screaming at the telly at her. But that's so interesting seeing it from that perspective as well.
Yeah,
seeing what they have to do to go through to get them. But like I say, I absolutely love the 24 Hours in Police Custody. I know it's not quite like a true crime one, but it's
it's a true crime documentary. We're just focusing a little more on film.
Which one did we watch? Was it the domestic violence one against the man who was being physically abused by his partner to the point where he ended up dying?
Yes. That the one we watched? Oh, that was a bloke, and they kept on saying to him, saying, "Look, well, have to prosecute. She's going to end up killing you." I know what you're talking about now. Yeah. That one was really sad. Like I said, took us aback, that one. Quite well.
That wasn't the one we were raging about. That was the one we were upset about. The one we raged about was the guy who was he attacked them young
I honestly can't remember, you know.
I remember.
Yeah, he raped them young lasses, didn't he?
And then he dumped them at a train station.
Yes.
Away from
but he done it 2 nights, like after each other, I think. Like,
yeah.
It happened like one night, and I was saying, prove that I was there. And they're like, wait there, we'll go fucking video footage of you dropping the girls off. And he's going to prove it.
You bastard!
I was going to use the C word, but I'll keep that one for another day. But
Britain is doing, like, I would never have gone out my way to watch programs like 24 Hours in Police Custody at all, unless my sister is constantly messaging us to watch it.
Me.
Yes, you. What was I going to say?
That's fine. Sorry.
Not a true crime documentary, but a true crime program ended last night. Manhunt, with Detective Colin Sutton's case on the Night Stalker of London.
All right.
I have never heard of this case before at all.
Is that the one with Martin Clunes?
Yes. Oh my God, that man is a national treasure. Keep him protected. He is. He did that one, and they did Manhunt, the first series, which is on ITV, about Levi Belfield and how his involvement in that case. It is phenomenal. Like Martin Clunes is an amazing actor, but he takes it to a whole new level playing Detective Colin Sutton. I am that invested in it. I've ordered his books.
He's
Honestly,
changed a little bit from Men Behaving Badly, hasn't he? So.
I was saying this the other day when we used to come to my mum's, because my mum's got a tendency for watching the same thing over and over again. And
I wonder where you got it from.
And Doc Martin is one of them.
Mm-hmm.
And anytime me and Anne would come in and she'd have it on, we'd be fixated because of him.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Manhunt was really good. I just wanted to put it. Literally ended last night. It's on ITV Catch Up. Please watch it.
What I wanted to throw out there, it's a bit of a left field one. I don't know if Michaela would have watched these. I know Sam might have looked into these. I do think they fall under the true crime bracket because, like say, what happened to some of these is a crime, and there's been a lot of hell on, especially over the internet over the last few days, like last week, on the last episode that was shown, the dark side of the ring.
Yeah.
I do watch them, but I haven't seen any of the new ones. And I saw that, and I went to my Stephen. What do you know about the airplane from hell or the flight from hell?
Flight from hell.
It was like, oh yeah, I've heard of that one before. And then I was like, well, it's stirring up a bit again.
Yeah.
We've heard of it because we've heard it wasn't just the Ric Flair incident that happened on that plane. There was fights galore.
You've got to tell people what the dark side of the ring is.
Oh yeah, so basically, the dark side of the ring is basically, well, it's up to its third season now. It's narrated by the brilliant Chris Jericho. His tone and the way he tells these stories are actually pitch perfect, which you can't expect anything less from Y2J, shall we say?
No.
If you're a wrestling fan.
Jericho, we love.
Yeah, but each episode is going, like, say, the backstories of certain myths or certain things that you don't know what's happened to certain characters. Like the big one was always the Chris Benoit story. There was a 2-part episode with the murder-suicide of, like you
that
say,
was really sad, wasn't it?
It was
very
hard to
sad,
watch.
Very well put together.
But again, going back to a previous point that Michaela pointed out, the second episode focused on the family of Benoit that was still around and showed the impact as well. And again, when they'd done the Jake the Snake Roberts one, it wasn't just focused on Jake the Snake, it was more focused on his daughter and elements of what happened there. So it was good impacts there. But the last episode that blew up the internet was the plane ride from hell, and it went into quite a bit of depth. I know there's been discussions as well. I've talked about they missed out a few things that I heard in the past was about Vince McMahon wrestling Kurt Angle on the plane when both pissed.
Oh, loads went down that night.
But that wasn't mentioned on the documentary. The big things that they did talk about was Brock Lesnar and Mr. Kurt Henning, Mr. Perfect, all fighting on the plane, causing damage where they're like destroying the plane and almost.
They're big boys.
Yeah, Brock Lesnar and Kurt Henning almost.
When did this happen?
It was just before Brock become big. He was just in the big thing. So he was wrestling Kurt Henning at the time, Mr. Perfect. Because after this, Kurt Henning got sacked.
Because Kurt died.
Yep. After that happened, after he got sacked.
Right. Got you.
Yep. So as I was saying, sorry. Because it started off with Kurt Henning being mortal, getting some shaving foam and splatting it on Brock Lesnar's head, and Brock Lesnar turned around and just going on to full Brock Lesnar mode and start fighting. And they thought they actually were going to go through and smash through the wall on the plane till they calmed down. And then they had Dustin Reynolds, Goldust, singing to his ex-wife Terry Reynolds that he still loved doing on the mics, and they couldn't get the mic off him. And then then it got to the abusive part, which I'd never heard about, where apparently Ric Flair doing the Ric Flair thing, getting his cock out, doing the windmill, but then cornered one of the flight attendants and demanding that she touched his cock.
Oh God!
So that was, and then the same flight attendant was getting told by Dustin Reynolds that she was going to get fucked on the flight. And,
I think that's called rape.
Yeah, and then having Scott Hall grab her by the shirt and lick her face and telling me he was going to do things to her as well. And that's where
it escalates so quickly, doesn't it?
But it all started because there'd been a 7-hour delay on the tarmac from the flight taking off, so they didn't get them off the flight. They went through three, not excusing the behaviour because there's no excuse, but the wrestlers went through three booze carts worth of booze, and they kept on bringing it back on because it was a private plane. So the amount of alcohol.
Did you just light up there because of the booze carts?
No, that's how much the drinking. I can imagine.
Yeah, but it wasn't just
like, oh yeah.
But it wasn't just the drinking. It was like the roofies, because they were roofing each other to try and fall asleep. Like the roofied Michael Hayes.
Oh my god!
Yep. So the roofied Michael Hayes. So that's why Michael Hayes passed out and they cut off his ponytail.
Oh my god, Michael Hayes' ponytail.
Yeah. So that's the whole thing on the plane ride. But this has ruined careers, this episode, because Ric Flair's never going to work again.
I've never heard of it, ever. That plane thing.
Oh,
and I I'm a bit of a wrestling, not really, but a little bit. Like,
you know your stuff.
I know a little bit. Stephen knows a hell of a lot more than I do.
There was, because Kurt Henning got fired instantly afterwards. Scott Hall got fired straight away afterwards for his behaviour on it. I think Ric Flair wasn't. They said on the actual documentary, nothing ever actually happened to Ric Flair because he was untouchable. Because even Jim Ross said he was untouchable.
But he was so old then.
But he was still made money. He made money. Made money then, but So Tommy Dreamer was actually not. He was there, but he didn't do anything wrong. But he defended the actions. Yeah. And he'd done it in a way, he said this was normal. The people who got offended shouldn't have been offended. That was the exact response. So he's been now fired from his wrestling job since this has been aired. But the next episode as well, that sounds quite interesting because it's about Chris Kanyon and how he was treated after he came out as homosexual in the wrestling business. Yep. So that'll be an interesting take.
So go on, Sam.
No, go on.
What was I going to say? No, I totally forgot. So you go.
What I was going to say is that this plane ride is common knowledge. Like it is something within the industry everyone knows about. And I brought this up in the Facebook group the other day because why is it now that Rick is getting punished for something that everyone else got punished for back then? Time
changed.
And
that's it.
Exactly.
Because it's been made public. Because not everything was made public because the flight attendants had to sign non-disclosures. They got paid because she even says in the documentary she got fucking paid at the end of this because they sued the wrestlers, and the WWE or the WWF at the time paid them big to.
Because this is what they do. This is what they do. This is what they did to Ashley. Can't remember her surname. They paid her out because she got raped in the Middle East when she was on tour, and the WWE. What? Yes, she was raped in the Middle East, and the WWE did absolutely nothing to help her apart from pay her out and send her on her way. That girl killed herself a couple of years ago.
That's horrible.
Yeah,
that's what I was going to say. It's like how you can support anybody who's going to Saudi Arabia and they're like, takes a lot of political stuff aside, just the fact that you can't wrestle because you're a woman.
They need the money, Michaela, because they are an absolute shit's creek. I am getting myself back into wrestling again, and not because of them, because of AEW. I am buzzing for wrestling at the moment because of AEW, but I do need to watch that episode. Just before we move on from Dark Side of the Ring, the Bruiser Brody episode.
Oh, that was horrible. That was
my god. Yeah. That was heartbreaking.
Did I watch that one? Which one's that one?
It's the big guy who got murdered in was it Japan?
Oh yeah.
It was Puerto Rico.
Yeah, like
Puerto Rico.
Yeah, his face all cut up, but that's what they used to do.
Well, he always had like cuts in his face, but he had an argument with a wrestler over there, and he just stabbed him.
He was on the documentary, wasn't he?
No, you're thinking of oh my god, he died not long ago. You're thinking of Ajax, the one who would throw himself.
New Jack. You're thinking New Jack.
New Jack, that's it. He's the crazy one who had the big massive scar on the top of his head.
Yeah, he stabbed someone in the ring because some wrestler didn't agree with him. He stabbed him in the ring.
Yeah, this is like back ages. This is like back in the 70s.
Wine everywhere. I'm ready.
So is there any other true crime other than, because we've obviously we've gone a bit further than murder now. We've gone into the wrestling side of it. Any other, Michaela?
Yeah. Yes, definitely. So I probably think true crime is my favourite genre in documentaries, really. I do like Odyssey stories, which is a whole nother podcast in themselves of like individual people's stories. Very like Werner Herzog's documentaries and that, which honestly I could talk about all day, but I'm not going to talk about them. Yeah. So ones that I love that are true crime are like fraud documentaries and like white collar crimes and like crazy stories like that. So one of them is one called Fire Festival.
Right.
I don't know if you've watched that.
I've not watched it, but I've heard about it. That's when
oh my god,
yeah, kind of fucks everything up, doesn't he?
Both of you need to watch it because it is so good. So there's two, but there's one on Netflix which is far better, just like better produced, better story, like gets you really more engaged. And if anyone doesn't know about Fire Festival, it's like these mega rich, like younger entrepreneurs who are like, right, we're going to make this festival and it's going to be here and it's going to be the best thing ever. And they get like all like the A-list models. So, they get the Kardashians, the Hadids, like all them people. I know you haven't got a fucking clue who they are, Paul, but all these women.
I know. I've heard of Kardashians, but I'll be. Yeah.
So they're like lounging on boats and being like, "What's so beautiful?" Like a bit like a Zoolander commercial.
Oh dear.
And then they use this video to invent the Fire Festival, and it's just all about that going absolutely tits up. Now, there's another documentary called, what is it called? It is called, because I definitely wrote it down somewhere, The Inventor. I don't know if you've heard of that one, which is all about Elizabeth Holmes. Now, have you heard of this one?
No.
So, Elizabeth Holmes, in a little nutshell, is this, again, Silicon Valley entrepreneur, white woman, and it's very important that she's a white woman, rich white woman, that's very important that she's that, who was like, I'm going to create this little medicine thing where it takes your blood and then you can instantly get all your diagnosis through this blood test, and then so it's all about her. She gets billions invested in this. She like dresses like Steve Jobs. She like lowers the voice, kind of like mine, but this is stuck here to sound more serious. And she like does this, and then it goes tits up. Now the best thing about both of these documentaries is that both of them are absolute flim-flam men, and they are just conning the shit out of people. They were never going to have that festival. They were never going to do this blood thing that was going to change the world. It was all about making money. And the best thing about these documentaries is they get their fucking
comeuppance.
Deserves. Is that the right word? Comeuppance. That's a fair word, Sam. Yeah. So Elizabeth Holmes at the minute is on trial, and I think she's going to get off because she's a rich white woman. And she's actually playing the woman card that she was abused and all this stuff. You have to watch it to get the whole story of it. Because normally I'd be like, believe the woman. Don't believe her. And she screwed over so many people. Like, so this blood test was like in like all these stores. Sort of thing, and I know I'm talking really fast, so people are just like, "What the fuck are you talking about?"
It's good. I can tell you're passionate. I can tell you actually like that's something that it sounds good.
They're so good, and like so say like Boots, the inline Boots in America. I think they're called Walgreens. Yeah. And so they're in these places, and people are going getting tests, and they're like, "Oh, you're HIV positive," like.
Yeah.
And like these people thinking they're HIV positive, and they get another test, and obviously they have to pay for their stuff over there. So like you just go to your GP and say, "Give the test."
Yeah.
So she had to save up, get another test, and and then obviously she wasn't. one woman thought she lost a child. Like, these are really serious things. People who had cancer and they're not getting the results back because it wasn't real.
Yeah.
It wasn't real. Like the festival, it wasn't real.
Yeah. No, sorry.
And like, I love
I was
shit
just
like that.
sorry for jumping in there. It's interesting, like I said, they're going from the true crime to, again, it doesn't have to be about murder and intrigue. It's quite interesting. I know, I don't know if I would put this in the true crime genre, but I'm going to have to be very careful with this one and because I don't want to offend anyone. Because, like I say, one of the big rules in the Nerdy Up North community in the Facebook group is no religion and no politics. But I remember watching this for the first time and just thinking, how can this be allowed and how can it be going on? Going Clear, the Scientology.
Yeah.
Now that was
such a good documentary.
Which one's that one?
It's the
Scientology.
One. Is it the HBO one?
Yes, yeah, it's the big one.
We watched that together, didn't we, Michaela?
I don't think she was talking to me.
I don't remember. I thought you had a little cruise.
No, Michaela, we watched this together. We watched this at my house.
Fair enough. It was really good.
But just to show like the depths and like the ins and outs and how people were indoctrinated and how they used like certain techniques to keep people in the fold and stuff. Again, would you class that as a true crime documentary, or would it just be, like I say, because I know it's a crime. I know personally, I think what they did was a crime, but some people might say Scientology is a religion.
Well, for someone who doesn't work for Nerdy Up North, I'm going to just say it's a part of the massive true crime of cults. Yes. So let's just say that, eh?
Let's be fair. Nerdy Up North's been called a cult the last few weeks, so.
I tend to stay away from actual cult, like I know I've seen that one, but like cult documentaries, because the worrying part about me is I am so gullible and naive.
Probably in a cult.
I am worried myself I would join a cult.
You have Nerdy Up North. You're one of us, so yeah.
Oh, there you go. I've done it. But no, I am so susceptible to what people say that I would get on board with them, and I would join these type of like Children of God cults and shit like that. I know fine well. Yeah. Like I would have been in Jonestown. I'm just saying
no, it. No, you wouldn't. You're not that.
You know fine well. I am gullible as hell, and I take.
You're not even religious.
No, I'm not. But I know what I'm like.
But yeah, like I said, them type of documentaries, that there was a bit of a fad going on like a few years ago. I know, like I say, when Going Clear, as I said, the Jonestown one, that was one that was on Netflix not too long ago. It's interesting how like the true crime has developed. I know I'm probably winding it back now from when.
We're talking about fun stuff. We're talking about rich people getting screwed over.
Definitely. But going back from like because I think true crime and like say that element has always been popular, but it was more in book form or newspaper or more like on the radio, shall we say. It's becoming bigger now because a lot more people have got options or aspects to it. It's a lot more accessible. And I think that morbid curiosity of people will always drive that's the explosion. But I know now, like I said, people's podcasts are the big thing. Like that's huge now in the true crime world.
Yeah, I was
and
just
YouTube
about to get to that.
And again, someone mentioned, because I asked a question on the Facebook group today, what people thoughts on true crime. Sorry, what things stand out to me, and then like one of the things that people kept on mentioning, I'm trying to think of a name now, was a podcaster. I don't know if you've Blair something, or am I totally saying the name wrong now? I'm trying to scroll to find the name of it now, but it's supposed to be quite big in the podcast world on YouTube, where she does a weekly podcast.
Oh, Bailey Sarian. She does murder makeup and murder mystery and makeup.
Oh yeah, I've never watched her, but I've heard of her.
Yeah, I do watch Bailey. She is quite. It's just how she talks. She's very. She will have opened up some doors for people who may not have been into true crime because of she does put her makeup on while she's she actually has her own podcast. So Bailey does YouTube, the Murder Mystery and Makeup, but she has just launched a podcast of dark history, American dark history, and it's really, really fascinating. I've listened to the first 2 episodes, but I was going to go into podcasts because the explosion of documentaries on the likes of Netflix has exploded within the podcast world as well. A couple of years ago, you couldn't find a really good true crime podcast until Serial came out, and to be honest, looking back, Serial was not good. I did not enjoy that very well.
That series was good.
Eh?
How dare you? The series was good.
It was interesting, and and honestly,
it was very interesting, and they did the documentary, and I was just like, nah.
But last podcast on the left, like I could not do a true crime talk and not mention the guys of last podcast on the left.
Yeah, I do like that.
They are so brilliant of how they, because I think you definitely got me into them, and you told us to start from the Jack the Ripper episode, and I did. And
yeah, I would say they started as very like, I can understand why people don't like last podcast on the left. They're very boisterous men.
Funny.
And they really were at the start, like, just vulgar, just didn't give a shit. Like, and they've completely changed. And, like, Marcus, what's his name?
Marcus Parks. He is
Marcus Parks' research on them are really good. And they have a sensitivity. They take the piss out of the people that they're doing, and they have a slight more sensitivity than they did before, because before they did not.
They didn't. They didn't really have like a concept of what they were doing. They were just talking about these cases and taking the piss out.
There's a lot like us, really.
But now Marcus is like doing really in-depth.
Yeah, we haven't got a clue.
But you've got the likes of Henry. Oh God, I can never pronounce Henry's surname. Henry.
Wazowski.
I
don't think it is. I just said it because
is that the guy of the Big Bang Theory now? So
if anyone's seen Wolf of Wall Street, Zabrowski, that's it. If anyone's seen Wolf of Wall Street, he's in that. He's the red-headed guy, but he brings a level of comedy that is not distasteful for the topic they're talking about. And then you've got Ben, who is us. He doesn't do any research. He listens to Marcus and he reacts. He's our voice. Yeah. And I just think that the combination of the 3 of them is absolutely brilliant. But because of them, you then got My Favorite Murder, who I actually cannot listen to anymore at all. If I hear the word totally one more time, I will put my fist through my phone. They are not as well. Basically, they jumped on the back of last podcast on the left. And the rode the coattails of them. That's how I see it. You can disagree with us.
I don't think that's fair.
I just don't like them. I really don't.
That's your personal. Yeah,
that's just my opinion.
I wouldn't tell anyone not to listen to them though.
If you want to go
trolling yourself.
Yeah.
They did a really good episode because one of them was friends with Michelle McNamara, so they did a really good episode of the Golden State Killer, and they follow that up from beginning to end until he was incarcerated. But there is an excellent English true crime murder true crime podcast called Red Handed Podcast.
I've heard of that one. Yeah, I've heard of that one.
I'm a Patreon of theirs. Hannah and Saruti are brilliant in their research. I don't sometimes agree with their personal point of views, but they do research it. They're scripted, so they go off a script. They've just brought a book out that I've just finished a book on forensic pathology. I need a break for a little bit because my brain is like too much.
True, that's a good segue as well, because remember, like say, fans of the Facebook group, the Nerdy Up North Book Club starts on the 1st of October, so you've got a new book to read. That's a good tie-in.
The forensic pathologist one took it out of us, so I need a break for a bit.
Yeah. But what I wanted to mention,
I told you, the Real Housewives.
Yeah. Oh God, no. But what I wanted to mention as well, the sad state of affairs is with the world that we live in and the shit we would normally go through, it's not going to be a thing where true crime's going to go away, because there's always going to be shit that's going to happen, and people's already going to do these heinous things, and we're going to have to have that morbid community to think. I think the closest, say, recently, dramatization, shall we say, that I've enjoyed, that's fiction, not true crime, but say Luther, the BBC done the way they portrayed killers and how the investigation towing the line was quite well done. Also, one of my favourite shows, and I hope they do a season 3. I know there's talks, because I know that it got cancelled at Netflix, was Manhunt. I thought the first 2 seasons was done so well and was done really interesting.
Oh no. I hated them. Me too. The first one was good, and the second one was so. I've read Manhunter by John Douglas. That man.
Me too. I've read a book. I don't read many books.
He is nothing like the way he is portrayed in the program, because John Douglas likes to give himself a pat on the back for every achievement that he's done. The book itself is good because he does go in detail about especially on the second series, about the was it the Oklahoma? Was it Oklahoma? Yeah, that case. He does go. Obviously, he was very heavily involved in it, but again, he was very heavily involved in it. He did this. He loves to give himself that pat on the back. The fact that they kept bringing BTK, I fucking hate Dennis Rader, obviously for the reasons of the fact that he is an absolute dick of what he did, but Dennis Rader is another one who went out for infamy. Yeah. He gave himself the name BTK. He controls who talks to him. He actually gets money. I don't know how he does this because of the son of Sam law, where you can't profit off the crimes that you've committed. But he's a dick, and I can't believe they used him as a weave through that series.
Just to talk on that point as well, what would you say, not true, well, based on a true crime, what would you say film-wise is one of the best representations of say the true crime, or the type of genre, where it's been based on a true murder or a true subject? I know
proper truth, or maybe inspired by.
Well, it'll always be inspired by, because there'll always be elements. But to me, it was probably. I know it's quite long, but the Zodiac Killer with Jake John.
God.
Totally balls the pants off.
I know, but I still think it.
Paul, I slept 3 times through that film.
I can't watch it.
I like it. I think it's quite element. I like say when it goes into a bit more detail, and it doesn't have to be say full on action. Say I quite like.
Well, you clearly like the director, because if you like, what's it called? The one we were just talking about.
Michael Mann. Was it Michael Mann?
No, Fincher. Finch.
Yeah, David Finch. David Finch. That's the one. Yeah.
I tell you, I won that.
Will you also be Silence of the Lambs, Sam?
Is that based on true story?
I'm trying to go out of. I'm trying to exactly.
Based on people.
One of my took elements and put it in, because would you go Texas Chainsaw Massacre?
Psycho. Psycho is the one inspired by true crime and by Ed Gein. I think when it comes to if we're going if I want to go down the bio route, Monster with Charlie Sheen.
Brilliant show. Good show then.
And Christine Ricci was probably the closest.
Eileen
Wuornos, the woman breaks me heart.
Yeah. You could have a whole. We could talk about her for a whole hour and a half.
We could, because there's so much this. We're never going to know the truth. What actually happened with Eileen?
No. And I don't think any of these elements would, unless
but
that never tell us anything.
That woman was seriously ill.
Yeah,
seriously ill. You can just listen to
her exploited.
To realize how serious that she needed help. She needed rehabilitation, and what she got was the death penalty. And I used to be all for the death penalty, all for it. I agreed with capital punishment, but after
now there's a statement.
I agreed with capital punishment.
We're going to isolate that, Sam.
But after the West Memphis 3 case, that really changed my mind on how I thought about it, because if they can get it wrong with one, how many others if they're getting it wrong with? And you can't, I don't agree that, now I don't agree that if one can be proven innocent, then nobody should be put on death row.
Yeah. Just to go back to the Eileen Warner thing, I know, like I say, I'm going to stir a few, stir it up a little bit. Again, do you think if a man committed her crimes, what she did, would he have got death row? Would he be dead now?
It depends, because you've got to think of the state of that he did
Florida.
it. Florida. They fucking love to put people under.
Yeah, but like say, because in my opinion, when I looked at that case and when I seen the documentaries, they were in such a hurry to kill her off. They didn't want her alive as much, and I think it was more to do with a woman committing these crimes. They didn't want to see that. And again, that's not me being sexist or anything there, but that was my view.
It wasn't just that. It was also a political move. Jeb Bush was coming up for re-election, and the public needed something to be inspired by. So Jed went, let's go and kill that serial killer who's been sitting there for God knows how long. We'll get her off. And it was a political move. Eileen was killed because Jed Bush needed the votes. But again, I'm a heavy believer in rehabilitation, and I don't believe she was given anything. She was given no help. She died an incredibly ill woman.
Mm-hmm. So we'll try and stay on a more positive thought. So
you can't stay on a positive note on this kind of podcast on talking about true crime.
No, what I want to say is, like I say, I've really enjoyed talking. Like I say, I don't think, like, I never thought I was as well versed in true crime till I've actually thought about it as much, and I think it is ingrained in, like I said, in all of us. I think everyone has that type of element or that curiosity. It's just how far you do push it. But I've really enjoyed today, and I think that's a nice place to leave it, unless anyone else has any other points they wanted to raise. I think Sam's cleared up that she doesn't believe in
no points. I just want to highlight. Well, we all change and grow. Like I think I went too far into the true crime stuff, and like with that murderabilia part of it. And I am like completely against it now. Do not, because like to me, like I'm a bit like, I work in the arts. I love art. I collect art. To me, it was like, oh, it's art. It's collectibles. It's this. You know, like you collect stuff too. Yeah. Clearly from your background. And I just put it with that, and then actually no, because you have no idea who's getting that money. You have no idea who you're exploiting. Like it's. By the way, I only spent like 30 quid, so. Don't come for it too hard.
There's no judgment here. Like, say one of my family members' father, like I say, actually is in close contact and writes quite regularly to Bronson. Shares artwork with him.
A man who will never be mentioned in my father's presence. My dad hates him. Absolutely hates that man. Even though he kind of got a job because of him. When he did the riots, and all the prison officers went down to assist, they were short of staff. So my dad got his job. So
yeah, we've all got our crosses.
Bravo, Bronson. I would just like to end on some like people who might want to watch the documentaries. I'm going to give you a list. Cool. Catching the Freemans. Anyone seen that? It's a really good crime documentary about this family who it's kind of like it is and is not paedophile kind of thing. One that I can't believe we didn't mention, Sam, the Drinks.
Oh my God, I've literally just watched it again for the third time.
Which, again, it's the same director as Capturing the Freemans. It's a brilliant documentary. Anything I tell you, if you haven't seen it, will spoil it. Another one that is absolutely heartbreaking, I'll give you a trigger warning, and a everything warning, is Dear Zachary.
Nope.
Again, I can't tell you anything about it. You have to go in blind, and it's a heroine.
If anyone has the inkling of they want to go and watch that, please come and talk to me first, because I will be very happy to ruin it for you, so you don't have to experience what I did. Because Michaela told me about this, I watched it, and I was broken for a week. Physically broken for a week. It is one of the worst documentaries ever. It's heartbreaking. So I'll ruin it for you. I'm happy to do that.
2 thumbs up.
13, which is a documentary by Ava DuVernay, who is all about the prison system and how black, mainly men, it's like the new form of like slavery is to get them all in the prison. It's on Netflix. It's fucking brilliant. She's an amazing director. Absolutely love her. Tickled, which is by David. Oh, what's his name?
How could we not talk about Tickled?
I know.
It's crazy.
Dark tourism documentaries on Netflix.
Yeah.
David New Zealand guy. Yeah. Anyway, again,
I like the dark. I like the dark tourism.
Well,
have you seen Tickled?
I haven't seen Tickled, no.
Oh my God, watch Tickled. It is honestly, me and Ant went down a rabbit hole after that documentary. Any more?
Just a few more. There's Into the Abyss, which I've kind of mentioned, my love of Werner Herzog. That's the one about prison. He goes to save prisoners on life, on death row.
Right.
I think it's called Into the Abyss. He did a TV show on Channel 4 and did a documentary about it, and I just fucking love how he directs and how he talks and how his life philosophy is just amazing. Sour Grapes, which is also on Netflix. If you want to watch rich people get ripped off, watch Sour Grapes. All about the bullshit. Because like I work in the arts, and I know the arts is absolute bullshit. And how much money? Like I'm never going to work in the arts where it's like the millions and millions. I'm more part of the community than that. But watch rich people getting absolutely ripped off by a random person who sold them like shit wine. Fab. And the last one, which is the most recent one I watched. Now I haven't been able to watch anything of any sort of interest really because of lockdown. Like I have been watching The Housewives and MasterChef and Top Chef and just absolute shite.
I've been the same. It's like you've been wanting a comfort blanket. Like I've probably watched Brooklyn Nine-Nine like 32 times and Community over and over again just because it's like warm and fuzzy.
Yeah. So one of the first things I watched that was, and honest to God, it was the most heaviest fucking thing I've ever watched ever. It's called Collective. It's on the BBC. It was nominated for an Oscar this year, and it's about the Romanian healthcare system. So there was a heavy metal rock band. You might have actually heard of it. Like a proper, them screamy ones Sam likes. And yes, I sound like a dick. And they were so they were in a concert, playing a concert, and then the ceiling caught on fire, and then there was no like fire doors, and lots of people died, and many people got injured and burned, and these people, even like with minor injuries, went to hospital and died. And so everyone's like, why are people dying like with minor injuries, right? And it's because the Romanian healthcare system is shocking. It is horrendous. It is so corrupt. Like the government, you think our government's corrupt? It is like beyond corrupt. And it's absolutely amazing. But like, what? It is subtitled, and because it's so heavy, like it is a bit hard to watch because you got to really like get into it and pay attention. But definitely. A brilliant documentary, but ridiculously hard hitting and fucking mental. That's all I can say.
On a lighter one as well, one I've just watched recently, just giving a shout out if you liking crime documentaries, it's quite. If you like The Sopranos, it's basically an untold one on Netflix. It's a sports documentary, but it's basically where a big crime family from New Jersey takes over an ice hockey team, and he runs it like a mob boss. So the mafia owns this professional ice hockey team, and it shows you what they do, and they pay the players under the table, they pay players to take other players out, and it's so interesting. It's basically the guy who they based on was who they based Tony Soprano on.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Can we not? Are we so excited for the film?
What?
Oh, the film.
The film?
The prequel
Oh,
that's
the
coming out. The prequel that's coming out, yeah.
I got bloody rich.
So
Okay,
yes.
one more,
Okay,
and
sorry.
I'll shut up forever and ever. There's one called McMillions, which is all about these. It's a bit like
I've seen that one. I've seen that one. Yeah.
crime stuff, mob stuff, and they like con like people through the Monopoly shit on McDonald's. It's mental. It's great. And then that's all.
I've seen that one. That one's quite funny. But yes, but I think that was a nice little place to end it. I know we could keep going on for quite a while, but
you want to get a bed?
Very true, very true. It's one of the latest ones we've done, shall we say? But just want to thank you again, Michaela. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on. I hope you've enjoyed it.
I have very much. I hope I haven't like waffled on too much, and because I get my preachy pants on. If you can't see it, I am on a soapbox right now. So, I do get like that.
Oh, don't worry. I think it was the perfect subject to get on your soapbox. So everything that's been said has been
really uncomfortable.
And thank you for sorting out the technical issue and even coming on with your phone there, bless you.
Do you know how much 5G you're eating up now?
Bill your sister, it's fine.
It's fine. I'm going to invoice you, don't worry.
Lexi, I've really enjoyed that. I enjoyed it more than I was expecting. I was expecting to be a bystander in that, but I think I chipped in more than I was expected there. But what I want to say as well, I can't wait, and this is not doing anything down to the previous podcasts for next week, because we are starting the October.
Going
the Halloween one. So we've got things lined up. We've planned all the things to go. So next week's podcast, we are talking about the Halloween franchise from start to finish. The good, the bad, and the Rob Zombie.
Oh, that's so good.
That's the title of the podcast. That's amazing.
But yes, looking forward to that, and gotten a few guests lined up in the next few weeks as well, so that's going to be interesting. Yes, and
really good October. I can't wait. And if anyone wants to, before they listen to the podcast, if you've not seen the Halloween films, what's wrong with you? But no, they are coming on Netflix on the 1st of October. All of them, I believe, apart from maybe the newest one that they took off, but they might, I don't know if they're putting it back on again. And also the films that made us, all horror, not all, I think there's one that's not, but the majority is horror related, so get in. And
if you don't like going to the pictures, and I know some people know how to stream, Halloween Kills will be released in America for streaming on October 15th. So if you know how to get it, it will be there, just to give you as a heads up.
And if you need help, just let us know. We'll help you out.
Yes, so like I say,
are you illegally telling them how to do stuff?
No, not at all.
No, not at all.
No, of course I'm not.
That's throwing them accusations. Is that because I'm a northerner that I do illegal stuff now? Is that what you're saying?
You're calling the scumbags, Michaela.
But yes, again, remember to follow us on our Facebook group on Nerdy Up North Community. Again, that's thriving. It's like I say, getting crazier, and the topics are getting more fun. We've got the book club starting soon as well. On Instagram, Nerdy Up North. Again, follow us on YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, and Amazon Music. Just search Nerdy Up North. And
we are four subscriptions away from 200 on the YouTube channel as well. So thank you everyone who's contributed and subscribed.
Certainly. And again, ring the bell. Apparently that does make a difference. I don't know. So apparently people keep telling us that.
Ring my bell.
Yes. And but yes, so thank you. And again, hope you enjoyed that. So same bat time, same bat channel.
Stay nerdy, everyone. Bye.
Bye.